Broadcasting live from an Airstream somewhere in Tornado Alley, bringing you the people, places, and stories from the Panhandle to the Red River. This is your Only in Oklahoma show.
And welcome to the show. 'Tis the season, and what better way to kick off the spooky season than with Stacy Frazier with the Guthrie Ghost Walks, and a great interview, I must say.
Yeah, great interview. And then later on in the show, we're going to be talking about the World Series of Poker. It's coming back to Oklahoma. I'm Harley.
I'm Brett, and let's get our Ouija boards ready and head to downtown Guthrie. What do you say? Well, for nearly a decade, Stacy Frazier has been leading the masses through the streets of downtown Guthrie on arguably probably one of the most historic ghost walks in the state, if not the country. And joining us once again, it's been a while. It's Stacy Frazier with the Guthrie Ghost Walk, with the Bluegrass Festival, with the Christmas Parade. She does it all. Stacy, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad we're all still here.
Goodness gracious, because it's been since then that we've talked. When I refer to then, it's like COVID was kind of the Voldemort of viruses.
It really was.
The virus that shall not be named.
Yeah.
What a crazy time. But before we get into the who, what, when, why, where, let's talk about where you started off, because you've been running this thing for almost a decade. What got you into doing the Ghost Walk? I don't think it's you don't just apply within. You have it's a calling, almost a calling. Yeah.
10 years ago. Well, what it comes down to is I learned how to earn a living running my mouth is really what it came down to. No, 10 years ago, I was in Canada, Victoria, at the Empress Hotel for a wedding. The night before the wedding, we all went out and went on a ghost walk around town, and I could not get over the fact of how much this town looked and reminded me of Guthrie. Red bricks, same era, same Victorian vibe. And listening to the stories as they told, I mean, they were pretty good stories, but I kept thinking, well, we've got stories in Guthrie. I mean, I personally didn't grow up in Guthrie, but in a sense I did grow up in Guthrie because this is where my mom was from, and this is where we would go back every year for the 89ers Festival. We would go back for football games. We would go back, my mom's family was here. So I've had that association with Guthrie for a long time. So you combine that and having some of these stories that I sort of already knew because my cousin's here. I'm the second youngest grandchild in the whole family, and my cousins are older than me, and I pretty much remember spending my young years. They tried to scare the bejesus out of me every time they could, and they did a really good job. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some things, it's just really bad. And they've even commented, it's kind of ironic that this is what I do now because, I'm queen of I need another nightlight. I got back here after the wedding and I thought about it and I thought about it and I thought, I should dig into some of these stories. The fact that my dad was such a storyteller. I mean, usually the story had some quirky twist at the end. Yeah, I come from as he used to say, we come from a long line of liars.
Yeah.
And that doesn't count in this case. But we do have a tradition of storytelling in the family. The reason why I say we don't come from I say the not coming from a long line of liars doesn't apply here is because of the stories that I tell. I don't tell it was a dark and stormy night story. I think what it comes down to is that you can have a good ghost story, one, without having an axe murderer or some sort of insane demonic possession.
Right.
But for me, the stories that are the best stories are the ones that I can backstop to a certain extent. I mean, you're never going to be able to prove a ghost story, but man, when you can start coming up with names, dates, newspaper accounts, you come up with the peripheral information that makes the story not only possible, but plausible. To me, that's way scarier than just, sitting around the campfire and then, the story about the guy with the hook comes out. It's, those are the stories that I tell. I've got in 9 years, I've got 62 stories that I've fleshed out.
Well, what's interesting? You talk about history, and I think it goes without saying, a town like Guthrie, number one, does a fantastic job with preserve. You know, there was a time where they had kind of the corny, cheesy.
Oh yeah.
Covering up the, you know, and I hate that when you go into a small town, you're like, why would you put a sign? Why would you put a sign over the original paint job? You know,
because it was the 70s.
Yeah, I know that was kind of what they did. But what I like what Guthrie has done and kind of where you come in is Guthrie kind of went through a renaissance and went, you know what? We were the first capital of Oklahoma. You can't walk down our streets without seeing history everywhere. And they've done a great job within the last, I don't know, the last maybe at least 2 decades of really not cashing in. I hate to say that, but really capitalizing on, hey, you know what? We've got something here. You know, with the Pioneer Christmas stuff that they've been doing every year. People, and you've seen it. People come from far and wide to Guthrie for those experiences. And again, I'm kind of piggybacking on what you said. Sometimes a ghost story is just, it's the essence. It's the days gone by. And there's something about that certain time of night that it just after dusk, or, you know, when you used to do, I don't know if you still do them or not, we'll talk about it, doing those midnight walks, or those 10 o'clock walks. There's just something about especially around October, there's a little chill in the air. But let me ask you, and all this, you said you've got about 65 stories.
Yeah.
In your kind of research, coming up with what stories to tell and how to present those, are there any of those stories for you that you kind of latched onto, or kind of you have a little bit more of an emotional buy-in to over others?
Absolutely. I think probably one of the most profound stories that I've come across, and literally from the very first ghost walk I did, we finished up over in front of the Bluebell Saloon, and, you know, I'm thanking everybody for coming. Somebody raised their hand and said, hey, they had a great time. Do you know anything about the Redstone? Because right across the street from the Bluebell Saloon was the Redstone Inn, the bed and breakfast and wedding chapel. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you know, I don't, but it's my first night. Let me see come back to it. And I realized over the course of the next year or two that I was getting a lot of interest generated in that.
Yeah.
And of course, the first thing I did was go to, guess I need to dig into this. I had a lady on the walk one night. She said, do you know anything about the Redstone? And I think I kind of had a little flip of the switch because I got a little snarky. And I'm like, no, do you? Well, apparently that's all I should have been asking to begin with. Because she goes, well, yeah. And she proceeded to tell me the story about how she and her husband had gone there for, that's where they got married. It was the second wedding for both of them. She had a daughter, 19. He had 2 sons in their early 20s. It was a very small family gathering. They had a lovely wedding. They went out and took a carriage ride. I mean, it was a beautiful evening, right? They get back and they're watching family movie videos because I guess they were both widowed. Finally, about midnight, they head off to bed. About 2 o'clock in the morning, she has what can only be described as night terrors. And she just starts screaming. And her husband was there when she was relaying the story to me because it was on a walk. You know, we all ended up staying afterwards and her telling this to us. He said, you know, I can tell you she screamed for over a minute and a half, which doesn't sound like a long time, unless somebody's screaming in your face for a minute.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
She had a dream. She was following her daughter home. And her daughter was in her own car. She was in her car. They're going down a country road. The daughter's car ends off going off the road into a ravine where there's a river. Next thing you know, mom is standing on the hood of the car trying to get her daughter out of the car. And in this dream, the car is filling up with water. They can't get the doors open. The windows won't go down. And mom is, beating on this windshield. And she said in this dream, she watched her daughter drown.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Oh.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm even feeling it. I feel like an empath response to a secondhand story.
Yeah. Well, she was a part of a travel blog group so this place had been recommended to her. So, she went home and she just could not shake this feeling. So she emails the gal who had actually recommended this location for her and tells her what had happened. And the gal, emails her back and said, I am so sorry. That's horrific. I cannot believe that happened to you, too.
Oh, too.
Yeah.
Nice. Jiminy Christmas.
And immediately it's a what you talking about, Willis moment.
Yeah, exactly.
This gal was off and running. She did the research for this story basically for herself, and this is in what she was presenting to me that night. She found over the course of the next 2 years, she located 17 other people, so including herself, she had a total of 18, who had stayed at that location, who had had a similar experience. They all had a dream that and all of them were women, and 17 of the 18 were birth mothers. The 18th woman was someone who had adopted her stepdaughter when she was like 5. She's her mom. Who are we kidding, right?
Right.
But in every single instance, these people had a nightmare that they were watching their child in mortal danger, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. And in those dreams, they watched their child die.
Wow.
So I am immediately now digging into this place, and the location in the building, on the front of it, it says Coyle and Smith Wholesale Grocers. And it goes back to the days of the land run. You know, there was nothing here. That's one of the things that I don't think people really wrap their brains around, is that you had between 50, 60, 70,000 people converging on this place.
Claim staking.
There were no businesses.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there were no businesses. There were no shops. There were no farms. There were no grocers. It's mind-boggling that it actually worked.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons it worked is because of people like Coyle and Smith. They had the funding up front. They could buy groceries in bulk, and then they would sell them to the mom and pop shops all over the town. That's the only way this worked.
Isn't that crazy to think about? Literally a grassroots movement that has sustained Guthrie up to now. And that it boggles the mind. When we think about the land run, we think about covered wagons and, let's put our stake in the ground. The kids stuff side for me, that's what we did. We didn't talk about the history of, this is the backbone of Oklahoma. This is where it literally began right there.
Exactly. We had it's estimated anywhere for that first land run. They fired the cannon off at noon. They had 60, 70,000 people take off, and they all had to come to what is now Guthrie. Back then it was called Deer Creek Station. That was the name of the railroad. It was just a maintenance stop on the Southern Kansas Railway. That was the only building in town, was the little maintenance shack. And then they were still building the land run office because that's where you had to come file your claim. But by sundown, Guthrie was a town proper with buildings already being erected of over 10,000 people. And to put that in perspective, the population of Guthrie today is 11,800 and change, according to the mayor. I don't know exactly what "and change" means, but so imagine everyone here showing up someplace at the exact same time, all at once.
Looking for a piece. Yeah.
Looking for a piece. That's insane.
Yeah.
Obviously, I needed to dig into this place. Well, I dig back into this Coyle and Smith thing, and the only thing, what I found was there was a man named Arnell Baring he was a widower. He had come down from the run in Missouri. He went to work. First thing he did was he had a decent claim, but he realized his health, he was in his mid-50s, his health was not going to be conducive for him to work the land, so we sold the majority of it, bought a wagon and a team of horses, came to work at Coyle and Smith as a delivery driver. And it was on July the 1st, I think about 1894, he was making a delivery over on the east side just after noon. He went to climb back up into the wagon, and he fell. And he fell back out into the dirt, and he just laid there, and people went running out, and he's beet red, he's not sweating, he's panting, and it sounds like he's saying, "I'm dead, I'm dead." Well, he must have been, because he died right there.
Wow.
Trying to find anything about this man was insane. I couldn't find where he was a member of any church. I couldn't find where he was affiliated with a fraternity like the Modern Woodsman or the Elks, or, he wasn't in trouble with the law. The only thing I found about him was a little blurb in the newspaper. And it's amazing that we still have these, because these newspapers have all been digitized now.
Mm-hmm.
He won basically Employee of the Month at one point. And he was written up in the paper, he's the first one in the morning, the last one out at night. He won a mattress.
Gosh, I'd give anything to win a mattress. I need one.
Yeah. So the minister is there, the doc is there, and the minister is the one that says, I hate to be callous, but it's hot. Unless they didn't have refrigerated mortuaries back then. So he said, we need to go ahead and bury him. I'll go out to his place next week. We'll see what I can find out. So they bury him. So that's the first. Well, then there's the second. It's hotter still. The third, it's hotter still. Now it's the 4th of July, and I don't know if do they let you guys shoot fireworks off where you live?
I'm in Moore. He's in Chickasha. They can shoot guns and fireworks at the same time where he lives. Well, they shoot. Well, yeah, they shoot guns in my neighborhood too, but I don't think it's for celebration. It's more retaliation. But yeah,
I understand. Guthrie had banned it for a long time. They brought it back. Now you just have to buy a permit. But back then, my God, you didn't have the fireworks that we have today. I mean, maybe you have a big Catherine wheel or something. But who needed fireworks when you had, guns and liquor?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you look at some of the photographs from those early celebrations, and it was absolute chaos.
Right.
But here comes July the 5th. Everybody has to go back to work. They sober up. They got a new guy. They're taking him in. They had a huge root cellar that they had dug to keep the produce and such in. And, he's like, first thing, okay, let me show you where everything is. They unlock the door to the root cellar. And as they start to step in, they've got their lantern and they hear this keening sound coming from in the back. And they're immediately thinking, oh, sweet Jesus, somebody locked a dog in here. I have to tell you, it's one of the most fun things for me to do when I've got a group of kids sitting in front of me. And I ask them if they know what keening sounds like. And they'll just look at me, and I just go, and immediately they're like,
Yeah, I'm cringing already.
Yeah. So, they've got a dog, they've got their stick, they've got their lantern, they go in there. It wasn't a dog, it was a boy. It was a 13-year-old boy sitting in the back. He had his hands over his head. He's rocking back and forth, and he's making this god-awful noise. Well, they couldn't get him out. He just went into a rage. They ended up getting the sheriff to help get him out, who had to get some more. They ended up lassoing and hog-tying this child.
Oh, good Lord.
To get him out. They weren't even sure he could speak English, which is not out of the realm because, we have people coming from all over the world. But they get the doc in there, they give him a sedative, and they go through his pockets, and they find a note that said, it was just a piece of paper, and it said, Ned Bering. Same spelling, Behring. And they immediately went, wait a minute, did Arnell have any kin? I didn't think so. Well, this is the point where the minister goes, I'm going to go ahead and go out to his place. So he goes out there, and sure enough, there's, two of everything. It became very obvious that Arnell had somebody there with him. They presumed it was Ned, his son, but they found a letter. They found a point of contact for his brother, Robert, who was back in the Rolla area in Missouri. And so they, the minister writes that letter that so many people have had to write, we are sorry to inform you.
Mm-hmm.
They get a response back. And it's not from Robert, who had died even before the land run, but it's from Robert's wife. So it's Arnell's sister-in-law. And she says, yes, Ned, it was Arnell's son. He's been very protective of him. Apparently, from everything that was said, it sounded like Ned was on the autism spectrum. That's really what it sounded like.
Right.
Because the way she explained it was his mom was very protective of him. Because back then, if you had a family member like that, they just took him away.
Oh, yeah.
And locked him up.
Yeah, they put you in a sanitarium for sure.
Yeah. But they found, he had found the family Bible. It had, so yeah, we can put in, because back then those things were huge. You could put in your date of birth, your date of death. They knew that the boy was about 5 when his mom died. What had happened is Arnell fled Missouri in fear that they were going to take his child. What he had been doing was locking the boy in the root cellar. That's why he was the first one in the morning and the last one out at night. Now, it sounds horrific unless you understand and recognize what it takes for a person on the spectrum to function.
Absolutely.
You've got to have routine. You've got to have routine.
Routine. And the other thing, too, is in any town, the minute someone sees his son, they'll lynch him. They'll drag him out in the middle of the street. There's no telling what they would, because, again, people hate what they don't understand. And back then, like you said, they either thought you were a witch, they thought you were possessed, or they threw you in the loony bin.
The sister-in-law goes on, she explains a lot of this out, but she goes on to say, and this is the most amazing thing I think I have ever read, because it was such an act of grace, especially given the time frame. She said, if you can get him to me, I will reimburse you. I will make sure that he is cared for. I will make sure that there are provisions put in place that when I die, that he will continue to be cared for, and he will know his family, and he will know that he is loved. I mean, what an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Very happy ending. You didn't expect it from the beginning.
No, you didn't.
Well, you would think so, but the sad truth is, that letter didn't arrive until almost 2 months after they had first found him. And the situation was that about 3 days into him being held in that jail cell, Ned actually died from beating his head against a brick wall.
Oh, good Lord. That's horrible.
Yeah.
You tricked me.
Thanks, Stacy. So much for
Okay,
you could have left. Well, you could have left us with a happy ending and gave us the cliffhanger until we showed up and got the true story. Gosh, yeah, I'm listening.
I know this needs to be a movie.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
So this immediately, for me, I had the same reaction. I went, well, crap! I can't tell this as a ghost story. This is horrible. And I mean, it really, really was just resonating with. There are certain people in your life that it's always good to keep a hold of. Or one of them is, your college psychology professor. I called her up. She's retired. She's like, help me. So I go down there, and she's a hoot. She pours your beverage of choice. Here's my Dr. Pepper.
Right.
What's the matter, kid? And I start just ranting about, I don't know what to do with this. This isn't a story, but my God, now I got this information in my head. What am I supposed to do? And, I'm just running off at the mouth. And I finally said, I don't even know what to do. This is like a freaking nightmare. And she stopped me and she said, well, it took you long enough. And I said, what are we talking about? And she goes, what did you just say? I don't know. I wasn't listening. That's your job. She goes, no, what did you just say? I said, story, me, nightmare. Oh, nightmare. Yeah. And at this point, she reached my Dr. Pepper and she goes, listen to this now. I have had, because she did a lot of death and dying seminars, she goes, I can't tell you the number of people that I have had that on one hand, they will absolutely deny the possibility, the plausibility of any type of paranormal activity. There is no such thing as ghosts. But in the very next breath, they want to tell you a story about their guardian angel.
Yeah.
And she goes, why shouldn't it be two sides of the same coin? And I'm sitting there thinking, what? And she goes, think about this. Let's say that Mom was Ned's guardian angel. She had been with him that whole time, keeping him calm every day when he went to work with Dad, and he had everything he needed, and he knew Dad was going to come back, and everything was good until it didn't happen. That day, that July the 1st, she saw Arnell fall in the dirt. She immediately is with Ned as he sat that and spent the first night in his life alone, not knowing where his father was. The second day and the second night. The third, finally, okay, now it's the 4th of July, and we've already talked about the hootenanny and the shoot-up fest that's going on outside. I cannot imagine the terror that was in that child's heart.
Absolutely.
And then the next day, still no Dad, but now you're drug out, you're hog-tied, she said, imagine you were that boy's mother watching that, and there was not a damn thing you could do to stop it.
No, it's like looking through a looking glass and, or having that dream where you're screaming and no one can hear you.
Yeah. I mean, suddenly it made sense. I mean, and I still have people ask me, is the Redstone haunted? And I, honest to God, don't necessarily know how to answer that because it's not that traditional haunting experience that people talk about. There's not towels flying around the room, but there's definitely something.
There's an energy to it, and it's something that drew you to it, and that, or someone that did, and that's was my next question. When I asked you, are there any stories that stick with you? And in nearly a decade, is it difficult to kind of flip the switch and kind of detach yourself because you're so invested, and it's not like this isn't a zoo tour. Okay, here's the lion, here's the tigers, there's the bears. Yeah. Okay, good night. You actually invest time. You're a haunted historian, a storyteller. How do you turn that switch off and disconnect from those stories without kind of closing your eyes and seeing all these ghosts look at you? Or not ghosts, but you know what I mean? Where do you draw the line there?
Well, I think what makes it, because I've struggled with some things, and it wasn't until I realized that so many of the stories that I come across, the ones that fall apart are the ones that are all phantasmagorical and everything. The majority of the stories that I find the most interesting and the most information on are not horrific stories. I mean, yes, somebody has to die to have a ghost story, but most of the time it's about a connection between a person, a place, and a time. I mean, it was that story that led me down the street to the next story, which is, you talk about one of those warm the cockles of your heart. I had a group from Langston University out one night, and we finished up on this story, and there was this wonderful, wonderful girl there named Taylor, and she raises her hand. We're finishing up, and everybody's just sort of stunned into silence because it has that effect, that story does. And she finally goes, "Excuse me, I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me. I cannot go home with that on my heart. I'm going to need something a little more uplifting, And it's the fact that it's like a familial continuity, I think what it is. If I get one complaint on my ghost walk regularly, it's that it runs long because I won't shut up.
Right.
Because people get involved and they start sharing their version of it too. But my Aunt Mary, my mom's oldest sister, who we lost about 3 years ago, at one point she was the oldest licensed hairdresser in the state of Oklahoma. She was 92 when she died. She was the last badass backcomber in the county. We were having a conversation about something one time, and she made the comment. She goes, people in this town spend so much time talking about the past. Mm-hmm. Oh, I wonder what they did back then. I wonder why they did this. She goes, have you ever wondered if any of those people sat around, they knew they were going to die, and they thought, you know what? I might just stick around after just to see what goes on.
Right. Now that you mention it, yeah. Jeez.
First of all, it stunned me because of the generation that she would come up with this. But if you think about it, it's a very basic explanation of the theory of the multidimensional universe. The idea that everything, pick any place on the planet. Right here where I'm sitting in this chair. Everything that has ever happened in the past, everything that is happening now, and everything that will happen in the future is all happening here, different planes, dimensions, whatever that is that we cannot, that fifth dimension that we cannot explain. It's all happening at the exact same time, just on different levels.
Everything,
maybe
everywhere, all at once.
All at once. Yeah. Maybe sometimes we do get to peek between the blinds.
Yeah.
Maybe we do get a glimpse of what we see.
Now,
if that's the case.
This is supposed to be. Go ahead.
Where's my flying car?
I know, right? Where's that hoverboard from Back to the Future 2 that we've been waiting for? Yeah. They gave it to us on wheels and told us technically it's a hoverboard. Dude, that's not a hoverboard. It's not.
No.
It's a Vespa without a handle. Not a Vespa. What do they call it?
Yeah.
A Segway without a handlebars. Yeah. But
it's a break your head.
So Stacy, I know that you're doing Fridays and Saturdays right now, right?
We're doing Fridays and Saturdays at 7:15. Starting in October, we will go to Fridays and Saturdays 7:15 and 10 o'clock. And I usually will, at that point, I offer up other days by request.
Okay.
And other times by request. I do have somebody that helps me out when I get super stocked up. Stephanie Fortney is my alternative guide.
I heard she's kind of wild. I hear Stephanie's kind of wild.
Stephanie's kind of a hot mess, which is why we have to do the Steph special at least once or twice a year. Stephanie, don't get me wrong. I love Stephanie. Stephanie is my ride or die buddy. But my God, she's wildly talented. She's performed at the Pollard and everything. She loves to embellish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I have people that come back year after year. And if I tell this story differently, they're like, that's not what you said before.
Right. Will you be doing any of the midnight walks this season, or is that kind of a thing of the past? Okay.
No, I'm still doing at least 2 in October. I usually turn Stephanie loose around Halloween, and we do the Steph Special, which is basically, I cannot vouch for the validity of anything that comes out of her mouth. It turns into a pub crawl half the time.
I've read the reviews. It's a wild. I've heard it's a wild ride with Stephanie. So, Stacy, you make me want to drive to Guthrie and schedule one right now.
Well, come on.
I know, right? If people want to get in touch with you to get set up for a tour or schedule a special date or time, what is the best way to get a hold of you when you're not doing a million other things?
The fastest way to get a hold of me is either to call or text the Ghost Walk phone, which is 405-293-8404, or just go to GuthrieGhostWalk.com or go to our Facebook page and shoot me a message.
Well, as always, we didn't get into it, but we had a rough patch there for a while where none of us were doing much of anything. And I feel like you can probably agree, we're kind of back up to full capacity. And it's so glad to see that, while, you could still do those walks back then, but it's so nice to see you're still at it. And, it's always a pleasure to get to talk to you. But Guthrie, y'all have always been good to us. And Stacy, we really appreciate you being on the show and keep it going.
Always.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Spooky stories and all of the stuff that we're trying to cram into the month of October.
We're really trying to, I was going to say, we're trying to gut the jack-o'-lantern, but that's not, I'm just trying to think of something kind of like Halloween-y we're trying to exhume the spooky. I don't know. What do you do? We're the Undertakers of the podcasting underworld.
I love Stacy. She's got a million stories.
A million.
And there were a couple things, though, I didn't get a chance to talk about.
Yeah. That
they're doing a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So they do have their regular walking tours, which we talked about.
Yes.
But they also have bicycle tours and bus tours available.
Yeah.
But it's like special. You gotta.
Well, I heard a story that there was a senior citizens group from Tulsa that requested a special tour, which again isn't unheard of, but it was going to be at 11 a.m. on a Saturday. So what do? You take their bus, you do 11 a.m. Ghost Walk tour in the middle at brunch, and then you take them because the buffet isn't open yet, you take them to Brahms and feed them ice cream. So it can be done.
It can be done. If you want more information about that sort of stuff, definitely check out their website, GuthrieGhostWalk.com. It's got a lot of cool information on there, and all of the contact information is there if you're driving down the road and you can't plug in that phone number.
And again, kind of piggybacking some more on what we talked about, because there's a lot of stories. There is you want to talk about a community that's really steeped in tradition and has really kind of embraced the history, it's Guthrie. You want to talk about a ghost tour that's at the top of the list, it's Guthrie. Well, after the break, the World Series of Poker returns.
I'm Raven Rollins, and this is my Southern True Crime podcast where I discuss cases from my former hometown. Ada, Oklahoma paints itself as an average community, but its history of murder and corruption runs deeper than any story has ever told. You'll hear plenty of special guests, including authors and experts in their fields, who visit with me on each episode, as well as other cases in the southern states. With notorious and unknown cases alike, every victim sees the light on my show. This is Sirens, a true crime podcast.
All right, so our news story today is from PokerNews.com.
You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. But you got to know where to play.
And you have more options this year.
I like options.
So the 23-24 season of the World Series of Poker, it is upon us, and you can still get your seat there are millions of dollars up for grabs.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If you have listened to Kenny Rogers
Mhm.
and you know
Yeah.
when to hold them and when to fold them,
Mm-hmm.
you can make some serious money.
Or you've watched the movie Maverick or the TV show, you get to have a little bit of depth of field.
Or if you can, what did he do in Maverick? He materialized an ace of spades.
Yeah. Yeah, that will probably get you shot. No, it won't. They don't do that these days. It'll have you quietly removed from the casino floor.
And banned
And
for
banned
life.
for life.
Yeah, so at the conclusion of the circuit season, though, if you win one of their main tournaments
Yeah.
in the circuit, the World
Mhm.
Series of Poker circuit
Yeah.
event, you get a cool ring, which
Uh-huh.
I think the rings are cooler than the World Series of Poker bracelets.
Yeah, they are. Nobody wears bracelets.
I don't know very many people that wear bracelets, but a ring, that's cool.
Yeah.
But also, you are entered in automatically into the Tournament of Champions at the 2024 World Series of Poker, which is a $1 million free roll.
We had a 30-minute conversation about how to roll dice in Dungeons and Dragons. I don't play games, clearly. So I have a lot of questions about games.
So you have multiple options and multiple locations. So coming up this month, October 25th through November 6th, Choctaw Durant, multiple games.
Yeah.
All day long, every single day for a couple of weeks on end.
Non-stop action, man.
There are a ton of different options, different styles, different games that you can play. Some of them are super inexpensive, all the way up to the main event. So definitely something for every
Skill level?
skill level and every type of game. Like
Right.
they have multiple types of games available. So, and that's coming up just a couple of weeks. And then in January 3rd through the 14th, they got another round at the Choctaw Durant. And then if you can't make either of those, or you're looking to mix it up a little bit, in March 7th through the 18th, the Hard Rock in Tulsa is going to be host to a circuit event.
Now I know you've played the poker room at Durant a few times. Have you played the Hard Rock?
I have.
You're a poker connoisseur. I don't know how many times I've walked in. Like if Amber's not watching trash reality TV, you're watching old World Series of Poker, either heads up games or you're dialed in. This is your culture.
I like watching poker. I'm a poker fan.
Do you get the juice? Does you when you see him go all in, do you kind of get a little bit of a anxiety about it too?
I think maybe.
Yeah.
Like I'm more interested in
The psychology of it?
I guess. Yeah, like I just enjoy it.
You ever been chip leader or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I've done pretty well in some tournaments.
That's impressive. It is chess, isn't it?
I would say, in all honesty, it's more complicated than chess.
Oh, really?
There's more to contemplate. Like in chess, there are only so many actions that can happen.
Right.
And you can, depending on your intelligence level and memory, that sort of thing, you can see in advance. If I do this, he can do this. And you can kind of build this tree out.
This is why I play Mario Brothers. Well, I mean, more power to you. I always wish you the best of luck. Will you be entering any of these satellite tournaments?
I'm not 100% sure which ones I'm going to be able to make. I do know that there's some travel softball
You'll be doing
activities coming up.
I was going to say, will you be doing parlays on softball games?
I think that you could probably get hanged in the state of Oklahoma for betting on a softball team.
And the way things are going now, you might bet on the other. You might bet side action on the other team.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that'd get me killed.
Oh my goodness!
But if you want more information on the World Series of Poker Tour, we're going to include a link in the show notes. But it looks like a lot of fun.
Oh yeah!
If you're going out, definitely let us know. We'd love to sweat your action.
Look at him. He's using all the jargon and he's. I'm surprised he didn't say we're going to show you our blinds. I don't know. Is that something? Showing somebody your blinds? Well, because it's spooky season, it's been 666 months since we said we were going to have a feedback stinger.
We still do not have a feedback stinger. You came up with something. It was lame. I couldn't do anything with it, so I had to burn it.
Okay, so
but we do have some feedback.
We do have feedback.
We have a couple of new reviews.
Oh boy,
on iTunes.
I love it when you spring these on me. Go ahead.
So first one is from Woodchuck413.
Oh,
he said, "Enjoyable show. I find you guys entertaining." And being an escapee from the socialist West Coast, I find this show not only entertaining, but helpful. 5 out of 5.
I like it. Yeah, Woodchuck. Yeah, I've met some Californians, dude, that like our show. So,
Woodchuck, thanks for listening to the show.
Thanks, Woodchuck.
So we have another 5-star.
A 5-star?
Another 5-star review on iTunes.
Love you guys, but the bathrooms are dirty. That's probably what they're going to say.
From Jason Cole 24.
Oh.
He said, "I recently discovered the Only in OK and have had a blast catching up on all of their shows. I love supporting local restaurants and small businesses. I also love to travel within my state. The guys do a great job of exposing new spots to try and stay. Their style is fun and positive, keeping the conversation light and entertaining. My travel restaurant list is growing, and I'm adding more weekly. Thanks, guys. Jason at the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast."
Hey, and those guys are based out of Norman.
That's cool.
They do really cool, like, worst sequels, best. It's nerd-centric for guys our age. I really enjoy their podcast, and I like their posts, and I'll chime in on occasion, and I'll have to say, it's the other guy. No, I don't do that, but yeah, I really enjoy Jason and company at Surely You Can't Be Serious. And if you guys get a chance, and you like pop culture, you like 80s movies, top 5s, you know me, Mr. Top 5, I've found a home where I can embrace top 5 lists, but if you get a chance, you definitely want to swing over and try out the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast. Their logo looks like the Back to the Future font. It's so cool.
It is.
Yeah.
And I will tag them in the show notes for this show. So if you are interested in them, just dive into the show notes and it'll be there.
Well, I think your internet has to go 88 miles an hour to actually achieve complete download speed.
To get 1.7
gigawatts.
Gigabots? I don't know.
It's gigawatts.
Yeah. But not in computer lingo. I don't know.
Marty! Sorry, that's only Christopher Lloyd I can do. Marty! But anyway, this has been... Hey, Jock! We're in the future! We are, Marty! Sorry. This has been the OnlyinOKShow, Marty! And new episodes every week. I'm Brett.
And I'm Harley, and we're out of here.
Peace. Check. 1.
Check. 2.
Okay, we're good.
Check.
Are we good? Yeah.
We're good.
Getting some pretty good traction on the Facebook post of the Ice Creamatory episode. It's kind of, I've noticed so. Okay.
I go around and accost people on the street and get about 400 people every year. And by God, I got bagpipers and the drum line from the school.
That's crazy. We wing it or we don't do it around here. So, tonight, a journey into terror.
Warning.
What you're about to hear is paranormal evidence. Evidence. I'll never forget we had to cross the deadly highway. Oh my God. I wish I could find that video. That was the funniest shit ever. I'll never forget it. We don't talk like that in Kentucky. Well, someone said half man, half goat, what was the other one? Because I know we ripped it apart for
half man, half goat, half devil, or something like that. I'm like,
no, half man, half sheep, half goat.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Like three halves don't make a whole. They make a 1 1/3 is what they make, right?
No, that would be 1 1/2.
Or 1 1/2. Yeah, I bet YouTube pulled it. They're like, not even we can. They got right when they started demonetizing stuff. They're like, what's the point to go? You got a Pope Glick video? What is that? It's bullshit. It's garbage. Cut it.
Okay, stop looking for the video, dude. Like, we got shit to do.
What are we gonna do, dude?
Warning, what you're about to hear is a paranormal investigation by a deadly highway. Catholics are disputing the claim that it's actually a Pope-like monster. Factual evidence, be advised.
Well, the truffle. Remember that?
The Trethel.
Truffle. Dude, we won a freaking podcast award.
With the Trethel?
With the truffle and kicking devil babies.
Hitting... No, you said you would hit a devil baby with a shovel.
With a shovel.
Yeah.
Do you know anybody that wouldn't? Like, if you saw a devil baby, if it was cute, would you still drop kick it? Devil baby. If it would help your inflammation, would you microdose?
Yes.
What if your brain's inflamed, man? What I want to know is where you can get the stuff to microdose. At farmer's market? It's funny what you don't think your parents know until you ask. You're like, yeah, I've known the whole time. Because you're afraid to find out that your parents have any knowledge of anything besides how to make pancakes. 3, 2, 1.